Mr. President, there is a movement in Congress for your impeachment. Hardly time for making any request.
You've turned your backs. You've closed your ears to the appeals of the people. You've been traitors to the concepts of democracy upon which this government was founded. I believe in democracy as Washington, Jefferson, and Lincoln believed in democracy. And if what I plan to do in the name of the people makes me a dictator, then it is a dictatorship based on Jefferson's definition of democracy, a government for the greatest good of the greatest number.
This Congress refuses to adjourn.
I think, gentlemen, you forget that I am still the President of these United States. And as Commander-in-Chief of the Army and Navy, it is within the rights of the President to declare the country under martial law.
On this episode of Just Informed Talk, are the Democrats planning to use martial law in a scheme to undermine our entire political system by railroading President Trump when they don't get their way with this impeachment hoax scam that they've been trying to push through the Senate? We're going to talk about this in a lot more detail, plus a whole bunch of other breaking news stories. You guys are going to want to stick around to hear that and a whole lot more. Hi, my name's Craig. Welcome to another episode of Just Informed Talk. If you guys are new, please come here, hit the big red subscribe button, make sure you hit the bell for notifications. And to everybody who's here already subscribed, loyally watching, thank you for your viewership. I really appreciate it. You guys are going to want to stick around for the end of this episode. A little bit of a big announcement, I guess, for everyone out there. And you're probably going to want to hear it if you're a regular viewer of the show. So I'll get into that in the end. But you guys know the drill. We always go check the Q boards. December 29, 2019, that was the latest post we have from Q, and obviously we're in another holding pattern. Who knows how long it's going to be. We have a big election coming up, and the stakes continue to get higher and higher as the Democrats push forward this whole impeachment hoax, and we're going to talk about that right off the beginning here in the episode. So here's President Trump on Twitter saying, "They're rigging the election again against Bernie Sanders, just like last time, only even more obviously. They are bringing him out of so important Iowa in order that, as a senator, he sit through the impeachment hoax trial. Crazy Nancy thereby gives the strong edge to sleepy Joe Biden, and Bernie is shut out again." Very unfair, but that's the way the Democrats play the game. Anyway, it's a lot of fun to watch, right? So think about this. This is what President Trump is highlighting here, obviously, is that the Democrats are doing this as a scheme to make sure that Joe Biden gets the nomination, because they can't risk having somebody that's as easily beatable as Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren or whoever coming in and getting that nomination. Now, why? It's pretty simple math for them. I think they need the most controllable candidate. Who is the most controllable candidate as of now? Obviously, the former Vice President Joe Biden. Look at what he's been wrapped up in with his connection to Ukraine. Him admitting on video, as I'll show you right here, that he was in charge of the Ukrainian foreign policy at the same time his son was working at the most corrupt energy company in that country, which was under investigation, which he then used the United States aid, taxpayer money, as a bargaining chip to get and leverage his way into actually removing that prosecutor who was investigating his son's corruption, right? And he bragged about it. Watch this.
For loan guarantees, and I went over for, I guess, the 12th, 13th time to Kyiv, and I was supposed to announce that there was another $1 billion loan guarantee, and I had gotten a commitment from Poroshenko and from Yatsenyuk that they would take action against the state prosecutor, and they didn't. So they said they were walking out to press conference. I said, "No," I said, "I'm not going to, we're not going to give you the $1 billion." They said, "You have no authority. You're not the president." The president said. I said, "Call him." I said, "I'm telling you, you're not getting the $1 billion." I said, "You're not getting the $1 billion. I'm going to be leaving here." And I think it was, 6 hours? I said, "I'm leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money." Well, son of a bitch. Got fired.
So there you just saw him tell us, in no uncertain terms, that he withheld the money in order to get the guy fired who was investigating his son. But nothing to see there at all. You just keep going into how the FBI even now is still trying to cover up the connections between the people who are setting up General Flynn, right, who is, remember, President Trump's first national security advisor. That was a major deal that he was basically railroaded out of that position because he was set up. And how was he set up? He was set up by these individuals who obviously are, as it says here in the article, apparently dirty cops. Now, who are these dirty cops? Well, it's no big deal. It just goes on to highlight here in the article that Joseph Pienka was the one who took the testimony from General Flynn, who now they have a corroborating witness, according to General Flynn's lawyer here, Sidney Powell, who says that there was somebody there who could verify that what General Flynn said was honest at the time. Whatever, nothing to see here. Again, going down here as you look through this Gateway Pundit article, do these flowcharts look familiar? They should, because of the same ones that Q's been giving us for quite some time that explain how these case agents were involved and the structure within the FBI internally. Now, why is that important? Because it gives us a good idea of who the people were who had to sign off on this treason against our country. And by treason, I mean the illegal abuse of the FISA court, taking unverified intelligence, using it to get wiretaps, setting up an illegal operation like Crossfire Hurricane to try to get dirt and work with foreign intelligence services to set up an innocent person like President Trump and try to blackmail these people. It's criminal, right? But you keep going down here, and it turns out that they were able to research where this person, Joe Pienka, and his wife ended up living, which is actually turning out to be a home, $1 million home, purchased in California on May 19, 2018, that happened to just be, coincidentally, almost a year to the date when the U.S. Senator Chuck Grassley requested that the FBI bring Pienka before the Senate to testify on the Russia sham investigation. Nothing to see here. Then it goes on to show that his wife's a lawyer who just happens to work for this company called Baker and Hostetler, who just so happened to receive hundreds of thousands of dollars from, you guessed it, Fusion GPS. You can't make this stuff up. Records show that Fusion was also paid the law firm that she worked for, paid Fusion GPS $500,000. But nothing to see here, guys. Just completely ignore this. And so here in other news, it turns out that now we have Ken Starr, Robert Ray, Pam Bondi, and the Democrat lawyer Alan Dershowitz selected to the defense team for President Trump at this impeachment trial. Now, according to Lindsey Graham, I've heard him saying things like, we're going to do this trial in a week and we're going to kick it out of the court. And we're going to get into how that connects back to the martial law thing. I've heard some theories out there about how martial law in Virginia, if it's declared, could actually represent a threat to the impeachment process itself, especially if the Senate goes through a very quick acquittal. We'll get into the details of that near the end. But this is the team that's being appointed. First of all, you have the former head of Baylor University, Ken Starr here. I'm kind of 50-50 on him, obviously, back in the time when he was doing all the other stuff with the Clinton investigation. There's some people who have different views on him. I'd say the team looks pretty good other than Alan Dershowitz. Obviously, I connect Q told us that Alan Dershowitz joined the team, whatever that means. There's been multiple allegations against him connected to the Epstein stuff. Not sure about that. I think that there's definitely something to be looked into there. I'm sure you all have an opinion. Please go down in the comments and leave it. If you can tell me what you think about Alan joining the team, etc. But ultimately, what this reminds me of is President Trump's just bringing in the legal scholars who can argue this case and argue it successfully, because there is really no precedent for what's going on here. They have these vague terms of impeachment. They want to bring more witnesses and have basically another kangaroo court in the Senate and just throw President Trump out. We're going to get into how that connects to, everything else, not to mention the fact that you have Alan Dershowitz coming out and distancing himself from the Trump legal team, saying, I'm not a full-fledged member. I'm sure he's been told to say that. And, think about it. A lot of these people, what we've talked about is very possible is And I've talked to some of my friends, I have sources, if you guys, believe it or not, and they tell me about, what could be going on maybe behind the scenes. And we just, spitball it sometimes. And sometimes they say this may be more possible than another thing. Well, what might have happened for some people is they were brought in, they were shown the evidence of their crimes, they were basically given the opportunity to confess, and then they were released back out and not to say that it's fair, and not to say that I know that that's what's happened in anyone's case, whether it's Alan Dershowitz or anyone else, because I'm not saying that. I'm just saying it's a possibility. So think about that. Do with that what you will. I've only floated that idea a few times, and I've only really thought about it in the sense of national security, right? Because as Q has told us, if they just went in and arrested everybody who was, compromised by this corrupt blackmailing system, it would throw our government into turmoil, and it would cause a civil war probably. So nobody wants that. And you can, monitor people and you can have other things. But, look, not going to say that about anyone, not going to say it about Dershowitz, just saying it's something to think about, right? Not to mention the fact that we have the whole way that the FISA court is playing out. It seems that the people who are in the know really want to just destroy this thing. This is a great report. Mary Fanning and Alan Jones over at theamericanreport.org, but it talks about how even the judges who were involved with investigating the illegal use of the FISA court have been the same ones who are ordering the destruction of all surveillance data that's been collected on or before a certain date, March 17, 2017. And if you think about it, that is the evidence of the criminal act itself, right? If, let's hypothetically say, a former president were to task his top director at, let's just say, one of the top intelligence agencies to commandeer a super secret surveillance weapon by infiltrating another intelligence agency, which was working under parameters like, something like Section 702 that were preventing them from illegally using this spying device, which was originally used for good purposes, as in to go after terrorists, people who are actual criminals, right? Instead of just using it as a political tool, then you have a big problem. And especially if the people who are running the courts are saying, destroy all that evidence. Oh, destroy all the evidence that shows that the previous administration stole the surveillance tech and was using it against their political enemies. What kind of world do we live in where that's an acceptable outcome? And that's what I think is highlighted here in this article. TheAmericanReport.org, Mary Fanning, Alan Jones, go check out their work. There's a lot of information there. But getting into other stories here, Imran Awan. This is another great one, because think about what the whole Imran Awan scandal was. Debbie Wasserman Schultz, little tech guru, whatever, who was running half of the Democrats, or not even Democrats, like everyone's tech in Congress. And then, think about this here. Awan and his family had been technology aides for more than 40 years, to more than 40 Democratic congressional members, some of whom sat on foreign policy and national security committees. Their positions allowed them to access to all digital communications of those members. After Awan, a Pakistani native, was arrested trying to leave the country, he was charged with bank fraud. He cut a deal and served 3 months supervised release with no prison time. And just to put that all in context, think about this too. It's the original charges were that this guy was an aide who worked closely with Debbie Wasserman Schultz until it was found out that he and family members were also working on the Hill, were stealing tech equipment by falsifying work orders while simultaneously funneling members' emails improperly onto an unauthorized server. Does that remind you of anyone? I don't know, like Hillary Clinton and what she was doing with her private server? Do you think maybe it had become commonplace in Washington, D.C. for these people to steal each other's information, to live like some episode of whatever political drama you want to pick of the day, even the worst of the worst ones, right? Where they're basically selling information to our enemies and enriching themselves, while at the same time telling the American people that, oh no, we really hate the China or the Russians, while at the same time funneling all this information, having their families go and work for Russian connected businesses and becoming rich, and then turning around and pointing the finger at President Trump and saying he's a Russian agent. It's insanity, right? Where we've come to. Not to mention going into Russia and this new story that's developed here about Putin now purged his whole government, right? And I guess this is a form of, his cabinet or whoever is running the government with him are. And he went in, asked for the resignations. They all turned in their resignations. And a lot of the West news wanted to paint this a certain way. But I wanted to read this. It says, in the West, I am in the West, so I'm saying Western news is what we watch, but we know a lot of it can be fake news. It says, in the West, these events were spun to suggest Putin is consolidating power. The initial reports were that he would remove the restraint on presidential service of 2 consecutive terms, and that this would pave the way to his staying in office after his current term expires in 2024. That, as always, when regarding Russia, is the opposite of the truth. Putin's recommendation is to remove the word consecutive from the Constitution, making it clear that a president can only serve 2 terms. Moreover, that president will have had to have lived in Russia previously for 25 years. No one will be allowed to rule Russia like he has after he departs the office, because Putin understands that Russian presidency under the current constitution is far too powerful and leaves the country vulnerable to a man who isn't a patriot being corrupted by that power. Well, what does that sound like to you? Maybe a few people who were running our country before, and this is maybe a part of a deal that's being brokered internationally, maybe a peace, a push toward peace, just like denuclearization and getting rid of reducing our nuclear arms is always a sign of good faith. What if they're reducing the corruption in their government as a sign of good faith? I don't know. I'll leave that to you guys in the comments to let me know what you think about it. Just thought it was an interesting story. Also, everybody says, look, nothing's happening. Where are the arrests? So on. I want to remind everyone, here's a great place I'll leave a link to it. You can go down here and look at Project Safe Childhood. It's a portion of the Department of Justice website where you have a press room that has daily press releases that talk about the arrests that are happening every single day in this country. And these are all crimes against children. And this is something that, the media doesn't really want to talk about it. And they just want to pretend that nothing's happening and skim over it and pretend, it just doesn't exist, I guess. And that's why a lot of people get frustrated. So if you want to read some of these reports, there's obviously, justice being served, and there's a lot of crime that's being cracked down on. And that's something we have to remind ourselves every day. Speaking of crime being cracked down on, you have Iran's supreme leader calling Trump a clown and praising the missile attack in a rare appearance. Well, it is what it is. We just picked up the ISIS Mufti Shifa al-Nima, and this guy looks like, it's not, I'm just saying, this is what they have left. So I think we're getting them pretty well at this point. I mean, the guy had to be put in a pickup truck. It's like a TLC show or something. It's insane. But, really, that's what we're dealing with. Those are the people who are being backed by certain radicals in Iran. And, I'm telling you, we're winning this war on terror. Now, getting quickly into what I was going to talk about at the beginning, we talk about, obviously, martial law. What does it mean? Well, here's this January 20th, obviously a very important day that marks the inauguration of President Trump every 4 years. It's January 20th. This could be a big protest. It's going to have a lot of Second Amendment people. I've talked to people. I have friends who are, in running some of the biggest militias in the country. One in particular based out of Texas. And, they asked me, should I go? What do you think? And I'm like, I don't know. I've heard it's going to be a very, it's important for us to show that we support the Second Amendment. We can have an open carry rally, I believe, and come together and peacefully congregate. But when it everything's being put in this zone, and then you have the Constitution being suspended, and then declaring a state of emergency before people even get there, saying that you can't have guns in an open carry state. It really makes you think, what are they trying to do here? You have Antifa showing up. We know that in their playbook, causing civil discourse and is the way that they divide us in order to conquer us, right? So to me, in my mind, just be careful, be aware of your surroundings, and if you see something, say something, obviously, to all you who may be going to this event. But there was a theory that was put out there that I thought was very interesting, and it was talking about how Virginia governor has already decided that he could declare a state of emergency or ahead of the pro-gun rally. And he'd also talked about possibly having the National Guard used. That had been floated around before. And what somebody had pointed out is that the state of Virginia has a lot of the thoroughfares from the South that go into Washington, D.C. So just ahead of this impeachment trial, they're going to have a possible state of emergency called in Virginia, which would restrict travel through that state, which then in turn would keep the people from showing up on Washington, D.C. if, in fact, they were to pull some scam, as somebody had pointed out, where, say the Senate goes through in a week or a few days and says, we're not going to accept these terms of impeachment, we're just going to vote to dismiss them, or they dismiss it very quickly. The Democrats run to the Supreme Court and try to get the trial thrown out, and then they could actually win on some kind of weird technicality, right? Which is very unlikely, but it's something that was floated, and it's just another reason why we have to hold the government accountable for what they do, and we have to be vigilant of how they act. But it does, really disturb you when people like this lunatic, in my opinion, Eminem, obviously dark individual here, he is coming out and making videos where he has his literal album title is, I believe it's called Music to Be Murdered By, and which is disturbing in and of itself. But then further, he makes dark references to the Las Vegas shooting and other terrorist actions as he's singing his songs. And I'm all for freedom of speech, but at what point do we as a society wake up to the fact that the same people who tell us that Trump's evil and conservatives are evil, Christians are evil, are the ones who are promoting the evil satanic death culture? And then they it's just, I don't understand how that's something that continues to happen in this day and age. But I'll leave that for you guys, and you guys let me know your thoughts on everything down below. I want to hear what you guys have to think about everything. That's going to pretty much wrap it up. A few more things before we go. First off, big announcement. And I'll get into that in 1 second. But first, be brave. Download the Brave browser. It's free. Use the link in the description. Download it right now today, and you'll love it. It blocks the ads. It makes your internet that much better. I use it and really couldn't recommend it more, other than to say that if you do download it for free, install it and run it on your computer, and get the great benefits of using it, they'll actually make a contribution to this channel. So it's a win-win. Also, you can come over and find me on justinformednews.com, the official website for Just Informed Talk, Twitter at JustinformedU, BitChute, BitChute.com/JustinformedTalk, and a couple other ways you can know about the channel, Patreon, patreon.com. It's a monthly donation. You set it and forget it. You guys keep this channel alive and running. And I'm going to get into why I've been having more sparse videos lately, and we'll talk about it. But also, I have a GoFundMe set up if you want to make a one-time or anonymous donation. But before we go, we do a segment at the end of each one of these episodes called God's Grace is Greater. And we're going to get into that segment in just 1 second. But here's the big announcement. I hope I haven't made it too anticipatory, but I'm actually in the middle of a move. I'm relocating. You guys know, if you don't, I live in Colorado right now, and an opportunity's come up that, I have to take, and me and my family, we're moving out to California. And I know what you're thinking. What in the world are you doing moving out to California or California when everyone's leaving and it's terrible and taxes are high and it's got all these problems? And all I can say is yes. I know exactly what you mean. These were some of the same concerns I had when I first realized that this was going to be a transition I was going to make. But I temper myself with prayer and faith in the Lord and our family. We're looking at it positively. And you know what we're telling ourselves? We're going to make California great again. We're going to help and push, to help just grow our faith there and spread God. And we know that sometimes God puts us in the places where we can actually do something that we wouldn't be able to do otherwise. And I think that's the way we're looking at it. So I thank you for all your support, and we'll get right into God's grace is greater. But the point of that is, I guess, that I may, because I'm moving and we're trying to sell a house and move and everything, I'm gonna probably be posting fewer videos. I'll try to get up as much as I can, maybe over the next couple weeks, because we're actually moving right now. So that's it. That's the big announcement. So cool. Now we're going to do a quick reading out of the book of 1 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 4 through 11, and then we'll talk about it. It says, "Now there are different gifts, but the same Spirit. There are different ministries, but the same Lord. And there are different activities, but the same God is active in everyone and everything. A manifestation of the Spirit is given to each person to produce what is beneficial. To one is given a message of wisdom through the Spirit, to another a message of knowledge by the same Spirit, to another faith by the same Spirit, to another gifts of healing by the one Spirit, to another the performing of miracles, to another prophecy, to another distinguishing between spirits, to another different kinds of languages, to another interpretation of languages. But one and the same Spirit is active in all these, distributing to each one as he wills." And that's kind of my message, is just remember that we all have different gifts that we can bring to the table, and God's always going to challenge us along our path to adapt and to use our gifts for his good. And that's my message to you. You all are gifted in some way, in many ways, but you have something special inside of you that you maybe haven't tapped into yet, or you've tapped into it just a little. But pray and put your life to God and let God open up your heart and give you so many different things. And that's the way I'm treating this transition as I move and start a new chapter in my life. But I'm also doing it for you guys, because I want us all to change and continue to grow and use our gifts for God. So that's my message to you, and I thank you all for watching and hanging out this far. But that's gonna be it for me. Thanks for watching. Come here, hit the subscribe button if you haven't. Hit it, punch it, tap it, elbow it, headbutt it, whatever. Hit the like button if you guys like this content and want to see me make more. That's gonna be it for me. Thanks for watching Just Informed Talk. My name is Craig. Godspeed and God bless each and every one of you, Patriots.